this is Arlene White Swan. Welcome to the Mysterious Domain. This is part 2 of my videos about the spear suit or the wand suit in the tarot of the Tuatha De Danaan. This deck will be available. It's been hard work. I don't know if any of you have tried to create a tarot deck before, but I'm not a digital artist, so it's been quite a job for me to be able to get this done properly, or and finding a printer that does a good job, basically. But when it's available, if you're interested, I'll definitely be linking it below. So where I left off last time was we talked about the House of Pendragon, which is King Arthur's family. Uther Pendragon, Igraine, Merlin is the Knight of Wands or Spears, and some of the backstory about the Spear of Lugh, who was king of the Tuatha De Danaan. So this time I want to talk about first five cards in the Spears suit. The first is the Ace of Spears, and it is the Spear of Lugh. In Celtic tradition, Celtic Faery tradition, wells and springs are sacred and they're known as portals to Faery. And when you see fire on the water, that's often a sign of the presence of these beings. So in this card, I have the spear coming down into the waters of a sacred well. It's surrounded by hawthorn trees, which of course are sacred to the fairies. Fiery spear, because this is the fire suit. And it captures the sun, which you can see reflected in the water as well. But the Spear of Lugh again belonged to Lugh, who was the king of the Tuatha De Danaan, and it had many magical powers in battle and in healing. And it's also, because of the scribes and the monks that wrote the Arthurian Legends down, because previously to that they were only an oral tradition. Of course, they Christianized them, and this spear became the Spear of Longinus that had pierced the side of Christ as he hung on the cross. So this spear was sacred because it was imbued with the blood of God, basically, and so it had these magical healing powers. So one of the causes of the wasteland is when the spear is used as a weapon to kill somebody, and that was a misuse of the power of the sacred spear. There's also a dark aspect to Lugh's spear, which is that it thirsted for blood, and in battle it would struggle against its restraints to jump in there and kill people. So it's an extension of this House of Pendragon, which is descended from Cain. So they're not necessarily a nice bunch of folks, I think, the monks Christianized all of this stuff, and in the process actually balanced out a lot of the energies in the stories, because a lot of the Celtic stuff is pretty bloodthirsty and dark. And I think the fact that the Christianity side of it brings in some light and some transcendent qualities actually made these stories what they became, which were very much about a battle between good and evil and the healing of the wasteland. So in a sense, the Spear of Longinus, when it's used as a weapon of murder, it sort of links it to the Spear of Lugh, which was bloodthirsty all on its own. It had to be soaked in poppy petals in order to keep it calm. Some nice little symbolism there. And the Two of Spears is Tristan and Isolde again, because all my twos are Tristan and Isolde, which is such a powerful and amazing romance. Cut a long story short, Tristan had been in Ireland to fight a dragon, a monster called Morholt, who wanted to eat virgins and stuff, who was consuming virgins, and he defeated this monster, and in the process he met Iseult, who healed him of his wounds. But when Tristan went back to Cornwall, he had a golden hair of Iseult on his clothes, and King Mark saw the hair and he fell in love with the hair, and he wanted Tristan to go back to Ireland and fetch the owner of the beautiful golden hair. So he went and did that, and as Iseult was being prepared to board the ship with Tristan to go back to Cornwall, her lady in waiting gave her a vial of love potion so that when she got to Cornwall, she and the king would fall in love with each other. And while they were on the ship, Tristan mistakenly thought the love potion was wine, and he shared a goblet of love potion with Iseult, and of course the love potion made them fall passionately in love with each other. And so what happened is, even though King Mark was Tristan's best friend, Tristan could not resist Iseult, even though, and she's married of course to King Mark, but Tristan couldn't resist Iseult, and they had this clandestine relationship, and the Two of Wands, or the Two of Spears, shows the kind of telepathic connection that they had, and the blood connection, because they were fiery bloodline, kind of as the rousing of the blood, of the fiery energy of the spears. And, you know, she's on a balcony in the castle looking off towards Ireland with her spear, and Tristan is hiding in the garden, and you can see his reflection in the well. And to me it suggests, you know, a fiery, intense connection, and also telepathy that's brought on by the intensity of their connection. So, and the roses, of course, are part of the kind of fiery nature of the spears. Yeah, roses are kind of like magic wands themselves. I always think, when I was a kid and I used to play, you know, in the woods and play fairies and stuff, I would have a rose from the garden, and I would use the rose as a wand. So I think it sort of lends itself to that as well. The Three of Spears, we see the Weaving Goddess, and the Weaving Goddess is another version of Maiden, Mother, and Crone. And in this case, under the moonlight, because it is a triune moon goddess, the maiden spins the thread, the mother weaves the tapestry, and here she's weaving life back into the wasteland, and the crone cuts the thread. And so it's about, you know, the whole idea of, you know, creativity and connection and birth and death and the whole cycle that goes on and on. So these are, you know, you could consider them the fates. It's just the Weaving Goddess is a very prevalent figure in Celtic mythology and in Norse mythology and in any kind of, you know, Roman mythology. It's a constant because it's based on the moon and the phases of the moon. And, you know, I think for some reason it leaves off what I consider the fourth phase, which is the dark moon. But that, I guess, you know, in a way that would be like Morgan Le Fay. It's someone who takes that position more monolithically as the absence of light. So the Four of Wands is the wedding pavilion of Arthur and Guinevere. And because the Tuatha came to me dressed in the kind of royal 12th century French robes that were inspired by Eleanor of Aquitaine and her women following Richard the Lionheart to the Middle East in the Crusades, because they did go. In fact, the Queen Eleanor and her ladies would go to the bazaars and would go shopping and buying silks and buying all this stuff from the Middle East. And also they brought back roses because roses grew in the Middle East, and she brought them to Europe. There was definitely this influence of these kind of silk tents, beautiful tents. They were on the battlefield, they were in tents. And so I just had this idea for this beautiful tent. Their shoes are left outside to suggest, you know, don't anybody come in here. So that's the wedding pavilion of Arthur and Guinevere, with a red carpet, of course, because it's a bloodline. The bloodlines are everything, right? The Five of Wands is an interesting one because it's kind of based on the unicorn tapestries, the famous ones in France that have the kind of red, pink background. And the woman in this is, I copied her off of the unicorn tapestries because I love those. Then I put these knights, these medieval knights in the bottom because it's the idea that in the Holy Grail story, there's the idea of the guardian of the well and the lady of the well. So the lady of the well is a really magical person. She's like a high priestess of the wells, you know, the theme of the priestesses of the wells. But this lady of the wells is really powerful. And she has a champion. And he guards the well and he guards her. But in true kind of golden bough fashion, he's challenged every so often by another knight who would like to take his place. And who, you know, whoever wins gets the job, right? And in this story, I think it was, I'm thinking off the top of my head if it was Percival who found this well, and there was a stone and there was a bowl and it was hanging above the well and it had a banner on it, and he threw the water on the stone in the well and lightning broke out and the earth shook and all this crazy stuff started to happen. Birds were flapping around. A knight pops out and challenges him to a fight to the death. And, you know, and this is a very powerful story in Le Morte d'Arthur, definitely, it's in there. And also, it's in Monty Python and the Holy Grail. It's that kind of scene. I couldn't resist that. But, you know, it's the knights come out and they battle to the death, and the lady of the well watches, see who's going to be the champion. Wells are portals to Faery. So in throwing the water on the stone, you're summoning the fairy. So in a sense, this priestess of the well is like the fairy queen. And when she shows up, it's like everything shakes and the earth, you know, tremors, and it's like a lightning storm. And indeed, you know, her otherworldly champion will come to her defense. So it's like a trespass. It's like a trespass in her realm. Of course, in terms of tarot, the Five of Wands, or the Five of Spears in this case, is often a competition or a battle of some kind. It's not necessarily a bad battle. Sometimes it's a good battle. Like you're working to create, maybe you want to put on a show or something, and you've got to work with each other and assemble this thing, you know. And so that's works with this idea of a joust or a competition between knights. But there is this theme of the blood that runs through the spears, the blood and the fire, and the idea of the red carpet and the connection going through from Uther Pendragon to Arthur, through all of the stories and tales that are involved with the spear suit. So if you enjoy these little tale spinnings of mine about my tarot deck, please like, share, and subscribe, and I'll keep making them. I have a lot of material, and I do think I have to brush up on a few things. But into these Arthurian things, they can really grip you, and I think there's a tribe of us anyway. We're reincarnated from this underground stream. So anyway, I hope you're doing well, and take care of yourselves. Thank you. Bye.